Hello and welcome everybody as we return with another week of Valorant pre-show for CEA this fall season. I am here, RichRad, with GotMoxi. Again, it has been an awesome time to come back to do this show. I know last week we were unable to do the pre-show as we will start to get back into the swing of things. We've had a lot go on. We had Paul casting with you just this Saturday. How you doing, Moxie?
Pretty good. I'm really looking forward to sort of sinking our teeth into what's been coming up in Valorant because, I've been busy. I've been doing my homework. I've been exploring a little bit of Icebox in my downtime. And oh boy, I think just with the little details, just with, the puns, the little Easter eggs that they've hidden around the map, and, the penguin camera, guys, there's an
Mm-hmm.
actual penguin camera.
I
It
was
may
only
well
exposed to this
be.
earlier today as well. It was definitely highlighted by Moxie on our side time. But yes, there is a lot to go into to discuss today. We've got the review that just happened on this weekend where it was IBM versus Clutch. That was interesting to have them come in. Clutch managing to claim the win here for Capital Group. And honestly, between these two teams, there was a lot of action. We're going to go over what had happened through the course of the day. We're going to get to pick Moxie's brain here, not only on the new map, as she said, but also we're going to have a little bit of information on what her viewpoint is of Skye as well, the new agent that's going to be coming out in Act 3. So, Moxie, I'm really looking forward to it. But again, before we hop into that information, for those that are tuning in, curious to wonder what CEA is, it is the Corporate Esports Association, where you take your normal corporate sport and bring it to a virtual world, where we've got over 7 platforms that you can play on. We are specifically talking about Valorant, but there's League, Overwatch, StarCraft 2, Dota 2, CSGO, just so many different places for you to be involved with your corporation to put that prize money at the end of this season all to a charity of your choice. But, Moxie, we're getting into now this 6th week, and it's starting to change up in format just slightly. Still Swiss, though.
Yeah, and still best of ones as well. Remember, I don't think we hit the best of threes till the last 5 weeks of the actual tournament, Rich. So still going to be some pretty.
Put on a show and have some fun, Moxie.
And I mean, that's what we're all here for, Rich, isn't it? To have fun, to shoot a couple of people, and to make some money for some pretty deserving charities. And we can actually take a look at the teams competing and the charities that will be coming up this weekend. Amazon have opted into the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, which was apparently established in 1987. And it's the nation's largest organization exclusively representing the Black college community. And Microsoft are opting for the Bill and Melinda Gates
Mm-hmm.
Foundation to work with partners worldwide to tackle critical problems in 5 program areas. Mostly Global Health Division, which aims to reduce inequalities in health by developing new tools, strategies to reduce the burden of infectious disease, and the leading cause of child mortality in developing countries. A very worthy cause indeed.
Absolutely. Among many other things, apart they're global, but those are like the big established, resources that they put towards. But yes, we are going to get these two teams being able to come in, talk with us a little bit. But before we do get into the interview segments, which are going to be just a little bit later, we do want to touch on the match that did just happen this Saturday, where you and Paul were able to kind of dive in and really bring the action to those two. And the first kind of segment we want to talk about most specifically was the composition and what Capital Group was bringing into this, which was, partially a little risky because of the lack of knowledge that they can obtain.
I mean, I honestly love this composition. Even though you don't have that cipher to give you that steady vein of information on where your enemies are going to be, you still have the killjoy to make sure that you're not getting flanked. You can just drop a turret and have that same amount of information, making sure that if you want to go aggressive with that Reyna, with that Phoenix, and that's exactly what we saw Clutch Toll do, go so aggressively forward that WFH, even though they had the information, they didn't have the time to actually carry that setup through.
Yeah, and you can see a couple of times here even where it was like those first few matches where it was really back and forth, all the way up to about 5 points for either team. it was just constant one map to one map to the other map. Economy was just an interesting dynamic to this game, but still things to really highlight was the fact of how Capital Group was able to still recognize the defensive play from IBM, but also manage to maneuver as a unit and still play hyper aggressive.
And that's something that Clutch Tool were doing a lot of the time when they had this composition that they were running. They tended to favor numbers, and they would go in as one unit, perhaps have one person, normally Matix on the Phoenix, to stand back a little bit further away from the action in that lurking position. And they would just move into the space that WFH were trying to hold. And obviously, because you're a defending team on Haven, you can't just full stack on these points. You very quickly got overwhelmed, and even though WFH had the information, they didn't actually have the time, they didn't have the backup, the power that was available for Clutch at all.
Well, and the other part too is even when they were down and out, and you would think that they would have just been completely taken over, specifically more in clips like this where it's that 3-3 still even, and you had IBM still sticking out in this, they had the operator. They found the early picks, also found that Phoenix play as well, getting rid of, again, a very, very highlighted pro play from Clutch, but honestly, in the end of it, you still had the ability to reform from it and come back into this fight. And they were able to take it back. We'll clip back really quick just to see it again. And again, 2 down already, and this turnaround was so surprising.
Wait for it. Wait for the last little bit where we actually get to see that player's position. Cleanup Squad just gets completely backed up. He has absolutely nowhere to go. And
Absolutely
then
not. And then this is just another.
boy,
This was
boy,
yeah.
this is perfect. I love this play so much. This is why I love the Reyna, because she has that level of threat no matter which round you're on, but especially that first pistol round. Because she has the healing, she has the sustain. If she gets one pick, she very quickly starts to unravel an entire enemy team composition, turning that one pick into two. With that devourability, the Leer is so good in those early rounds when you just want a stun, want an opening to allow your team safe passage so you can go for that rush play.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone just bursts in, guns are blazing. And even if you're in the 1-versus-1 with the Reyna, surprise, she's got a self-heal. You have to hit every single one of those bullets.
And again, there were some great shots, but it's those little, minor extra shields that she gains from, that consumption on her opponent that she's just being able to snowball. And it's such a great utility to her kit. But again, it's I think more for people who are comfortable with the high risk, high reward. I tend to be high risk, but a lot of the times I don't yield the rewards. So that for me just doesn't ever work. But we can honestly say that there were some rewards, though, despite, Capital being able to take this game. There were still some very significant highlights coming out from IBM. It was just their late game adaptation that was having a hard time. Side Moni was killing it in multiple rounds, especially when it came to these early system rounds with these pistols.
But note that a lot of the time for WFH, when we're actually going to be seeing them at an advantage in these fights, it's when Clutch Tool are actually playing split. And that's because the composition that Clutch Tool are playing requires them to be playing all together. They don't have the information, they've got to therefore rely on firepower. So the second that WFH were actually able to slow any of these fights down, the ball then rolls into their court. That's when information really comes into play. In fact, we're going to see in just a second exactly what a lack of information put Clutch Tool at such a huge disadvantage. They completely miss Ingwao on that jet, waiting in the corner. Unfortunately for WFH, that miss does not get translated into kills, but it still puts you at that position where you have an advantage over your opponent.
And even so, Pat on this Omen throughout the rounds had still exerted some great dominance, but it was really just that, leading into these later matches where it started to be really challenging. You had Clutch manage to take so many attacking rounds that on the defense, they were very favored. And like this later round where this was a swinging point for IBM, they were able to claim this win and at least keep themselves alive for their economy, but it fell short in the grand scale of things.
I mean, I even remember during the cast being so surprised about how many points on the attacking round Clutch Tool were actually able to pick up. Because remember, it's always lopsided, right? It is always in the favor, at least in maps like Haven, in the terms of the defensive team, because you get all of the space completely given to you. The attackers have to intrude in and try and challenge that, pick up blood to actually stake a claim on something that the defenders get on a silver platter. And unfortunately for WFH, they did have the information, but sometimes we saw a couple of slips in play. We saw sometimes Hunter's Fury coming out at the wrong moment where you see what they're going for. It's trying to cut out the diffuse, as we see so many Sova players taking advantage of the fact that the ultimate cuts through the entire map. just a little bit busted if you've got a team and working communications and you know what that diffuse is roughly going to be. And that's exactly the sort of play that WFH went for more than a couple of occasions. But because Clutchdoor were playing as a group, there was nearly always pressure on the Sova, so he had to turn around and actually direct Hunter's Fury in the direction of his opponent rather than across the actual map to try and shut the diffuse out.
And we're
really,
gonna get to see
WFH,
that too. Yeah, this is
yeah,
that
I think
really
we're going to
great
see it in a couple of seconds. I think I remember saying the problem for WFH, they had all of the ideas, they had the composition, they knew what they wanted to do. We saw it so many times. It's just, oh, there it goes. It's just that Clutchital didn't allow them the time. And another thing that we can say about WFH is that they weren't playing with their team captain. Their team captain was, unfortunately for that match, unavailable, and they had to come in with a sub. And while you might think, okay, that's just one player, what difference is that going to make? It's a lot in Valorant where you do have to have those comms. You do have to have that clear line of coordination down your entire team where everyone understands their place. And the team captain is the anchor in a lot of these compositions. And I think if WFH had access to their captain, if they were able to coordinate rather than being able to take fights on their own and slow Clutchital down and really try and pinpoint this very aggressive and punish this very aggressive composition that we saw Clutchital roll out with, then the match would have been a lot closer than it actually was.
Well, even so, when it came to this last round, before the match point where Clutchital is able to grasp it, they played so aggressive to get that early pick on the defensive side, still utilizing this Reyna and the Killjoy and this Phoenix position. And, you know, it ultimately just was so challenging. Basically, once sides swapped, as you said, just normally you don't see the defense being able to fall as that short because it is more defensively favored. Ultimately, in the end of this, you do have Clutchital managing to claim the win, and we actually do have the pro play moment coming from this specific segment, and we're going to slow it down a little bit here so you can see it once again, just so you can actually get the reality of the importance of this. And take a look at this side flash, just looking to bait Side Moni out early.
It's so good. He knows the Cypher is there. He knows that the ultimate is up. So he goes for the bait flash, tries to play the mind game, and catches him out perfectly. Because Matix knows. Matix has got the ultimate. He sees the Phoenix outline, but he's already on the other side. He fell for the flash. Yeah. That allows Matix that chance to wrap around the back and shoot Side Moni right in the side before he even has chance to try and return the shot. And Matix, for me, was the MVP, without a doubt. This guy was on fire to the point where I think both Paul and I actually used that pun about 2 different times in the cast itself. He was on top of the leaderboard. He was always in position, and he was always on a lurk. And I love that. I love when players go for the lurk play, where it really does force the other side to slow down, because suddenly you're at an uneven fight. Not only do you have to win the duel with the person who is standing in front of you, you've also got to then be able to hold your own up against the team, up against the player that's waiting for you to have to get stuck in that reload animation and punish you right where the sun doesn't shine. And we even actually saw Clutchital really have a good grasp of that playstyle. Every single time Matix went down, one of the other members of this team would step into that role, would be waiting on something like C Cubby on Heaven when you had a defuse about to go off, would be waiting on a long or a Heaven when there was a recontest going down. Every single time they always had a player away from the action, ready, just being that threat, that unspoken, unseen threat that made WFH have to slow down, have to think whether or not it was worth stepping forward.
And, you know, to build on threats, one thing I would like to touch on is I know we had this debut a couple of weeks ago when we first initially talked about it. But again, Moxi, you've got the big brain. You've got all the knowledge necessary. And we have to hear your opinion on the new Agent Sky.
Oh, boy. This is a doozy. And you know what, Rich? Sky already holds a special place in my heart because the second that they said that she could heal her teammates and she would be, one of those competitors for that spot versus something like Sage, I said to myself, this is my new main. And for those of you that don't know, I'm a hunter main in World of Warcraft as well. So the second that they were like, yeah, you get animals to command, I was like,
Done.
I'm sold.
Done.
Done
Donezo.
and done. I'm not saying I'll use them for information gathering or to kill people. I'm just gonna run around and think, woohoo!
I mean, we're going to get a first-hand look. I mean, you're going to be having this pet run around all the time, just looking for information, going in just to have a good time with it. I mean, but still, this kit, I feel, is going to be so much information gathering, just really putting your opponent in an uncomfortable position. I mean, especially with this kind of ultimate, you could literally just tell where 3 players are in the general vicinity and just set up.
Okay, so the second that I read Sky's abilities, I said to myself that they had to have one thing. Otherwise, this agent would be absolutely busted. You have to be able to shoot them. You can shoot them. However, there is an interaction that not a lot of people know. Killjoy abilities, turrets, and exploder bots don't actually activate against Sky abilities. So turrets won't fire against them. Which means that Killjoy that you have standing static waiting to try and catch someone out on a flank, completely undetected. You get to slip by completely undetected, and worse, that you can actually use them to destroy Killjoy's ultimate.
Yeah.
They do damage.
I mean,
one is not like the other. Killjoy can't kill them. They can kill Killjoy's utilities. And I think that's where we're going to have a very interesting interaction, not only with that one agent, but also with everyone that Sky comes up against, because obviously you have that argument. Do you, when you see a Sky utility come out, try and press forward aggressively and move in before you're moved in on? Or do you back up, give space, and allow a sort of recontest question to come through? And that sort of leads us on to Icebox, doesn't it? Because Sky coming out, Icebox coming out, you know that they're going to be played hand in hand. And I think that means that you have to lean forward into aggressively trying to counter Sky. Because with the way that Icebox is set up, this is a map that is punishing when it comes to that recontest. There are so many angles to this map. I've been running around here for a week and I still get lost. I still get lost, Rich. I still have to stumble around and use the minimap and try and find my way. And even when the minimap is up, I can't.
I mean, let's look at it. I mean, come on. Like, look at these angles. Like, all these different positions. I mean, there's so many different places that you can find value. And also the including dynamic of, like, a zip line. That whole dynamic is also something so interesting to have for this type of map.
I mean, you have the zip line. You have the fact that Spike can be planted pretty much anywhere. On A and B site, you can plant it in the building, so you have a little bit of natural cover. Note, though, that cover is not going to last. It is shootable through. You will get wallbanged if you attempt to just hide behind one of those very paper-thin-like walls. You have all of these different angles, and this is my personal favorite thing. You don't have that lopsidedness between defense and attackers before the map even starts. Because one thing that Icebox does is leave defender spawn so very open. And you think about how maps like Haven are set up, you think about how Bind is set up, how Split is set up, and every single time we've seen a game, we've seen pro play, we've seen someone float spawn with an operator waiting for the team to give them information on whether they should go A and whether they should go B, so they don't have to rotate an entire map, they get to cut out 50% of it. Icebox does not allow that, because as soon as you step anywhere near any of those points, you have an eyeful of defender spawn. And in fact, there are 2 ways that you can approach it. And it means that attackers can actually move closer to defender spawn than we've seen in any other map. Because it used to be, if you were rotating towards defender spawn and you're on the attacking side and you look at a place like Haven, what are you doing there? Is your satnav broken? Have you taken a left instead of taking a right? because you're not supposed to be there, not
Mm.
that early on in a round. Towards the end, yes, if you're going for a bait play, if you're trying to flush someone out, if you're going for a look, absolutely. But never at the start, never initially there to try and cut off that float spawn technique. And that meant that the attackers really had to think quite carefully about where to position their forces and how they wanted to aggress in because they didn't have a player who could afford to hang back and not get shot at.
And
Icebox
I know.
doesn't allow for that, and I love it because of it.
And, honestly, it's a very interesting time because, again, there were a lot that said that the, creators Riot able to pump this out a little sooner than anticipated. So as we are going, to have it towards the end of this month, the 27th has been the discussion of when it'll be unveiled and whether or not we integrate that into our professional play here when it comes to CEA. Only time will tell, but we'll be keeping you up to date on that. And with that being said, we'll actually go ahead and be able to swap over to our interview segment where we will be able to get to pick the brain of both captains along with seeing what their opinions are on not only Icebox, the new agent, but what they're looking forward to see going into this weekend. So don't go anywhere because we're going to be back in just a moment. Hello and welcome back, everybody, as we are here to continue the pre show just before week 6 coming in. And we actually do have the amazing opportunity to speak with our first captain, which is from Amazon Alexa Rush B, Captain Kadoje. And it is amazing to have you here, my friend. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we gotta start off. We've asked it, every pre-show. We just want to get to know right out the gate. Tell us about yourself and how you got involved as the captain and in the Valorant for CEA.
Sure. Yeah. So I live in Seattle. I lived in New York for a while. I'm an engineer at Amazon. And let's see. I mean, Valorant is really the only game I play right now. But I used to play CS a long time ago before like 1.6, like during the beta days, and then didn't really play much CS:GO. But yeah, I picked up Valorant with my friends, and they're the ones who got me into it, and I just got hooked, and it's been a lot of fun.
So, how did you gather your team then? Are they coworkers on a regular basis, or did you guys do a sort of open call to whoever was interested in first-person shooters?
Yeah, it was pretty serendipitous actually for me because I just I think it was back in August before the season started. I like hopped onto the Slack and just kind of did a search like company wide. I was like, I wonder if anybody's even talking about Valorant, and I like stumbled upon there's somebody else who actually organized all of the teams because there's actually 4 different Amazon
There's a
teams
lot,
in
yeah.
CEA. Yeah, I was surprised, and yeah, and then quickly, that guy, his name's Sean. He made a channel for it, and then he just kind of took lead of for organizing all the teams, and then and then like, once he put the teams together, it became time to like figure out who was going to be the captain of each team. And for me, I was like, I wasn't sure if I really wanted to be a captain because I'd never done CEA before and wasn't really sure what was involved. But then like nobody else was stepping up, so I was like, well, I guess I better do it so we can play it all. And it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun, like just meeting random people across the company and playing together. And CEA has just been really great to work with and really well run, from what I can tell.
Well, it's been a pleasure to also have, teams and, captains like yourself being able to step up and, fill those voids necessary. So definite kudos to you to allow these teams to play and have some direction. And, to build off that, what have you kind of done as the captain to, help kind of set your team up going into this competition? And what has allowed you to set and lay foundation? Has it kind of, filtered back from your time at CSGO? Do you take leadership from elsewhere? What have you done to really prepare yourself for it?
Yeah, I think just I think Sean did a great job. The guy who organized the whole thing, he like set up a Discord server, and then it was a little bit slow to start in terms of figuring out how to build team chemistry and how to communicate properly. When to over communicate and under communicate, and really just spending time together, which is tough for everybody because everybody's busy and everybody has a day job. So and just trying to respect that, but well, at the same time, just trying to make time to just play together and build that team chemistry and figure out what works and what doesn't, and then change up rosters as needed. So I actually spent a decent amount of time thinking about that, and also I started watching a lot of streams. So whenever I stream, or sorry, when I watch streams, like pro Valorant players, I'll try to watch more of the IGLs and try to see how they're communicating with their team in the game, and then outside of the game, I'll just try to do some reading and figure out what does a captain even do. But for me, it's just like as long as the administrative stuff is taken care of, I think my team's just happy to be playing. So. Um,
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you actually mentioned what works and what doesn't, because that leads perfectly onto the next question. We're having a couple of slightly large changes coming to Valorant, not going to be in tournament play this week, but perhaps the next, depending on whether or not the admins decide on that 4-week rule. How are you guys preparing for Icebox and Sky?
oh man. So I don't know that I can't say that we're doing like a lot specifically for that. I mean, we talk about it. So, I mentioned we have this kind of like our own Amazon Discord, Valorant Discord thing, and we kind of like chat about it, and people like share their thoughts on like, Icebox and what they've seen, and Sky in general. But in terms of prep, I know like for me, I'll just play deathmatch and kind of hope that I get into Icebox. And that's kind of the extent of my prep, which has been really like bewildering for me the few times that I have played it. But beyond that, yeah, I don't know that I have a great answer that we're like, you know, doing a lot to actually specifically plan around it. We'll probably just, you know, try her out as soon as she becomes available and just, you know, try her out in scrims and practices and whatnot.
I mean, typically, I think with any Riot game, the release of an agent or hero or champion or anything of the sort is always very overpowered. Let's be honest. I mean, I think that goes across the board. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time for it to happen. But again, being able to find the strengths and weaknesses of it is very important. So, you know, speaking about, you know, the agents to come, talking about the agents that we presently have, what is your go-to and what do you enjoy kind of revolving your compositions around?
So for me personally, I play a pretty limited set of agents. Like I'll main Omen typically, and that's just because who I ended up feeling comfortable with. But with my team, we have some pretty talented people in my team. I'm probably the worst person on my team. I'm pretty comfortable with saying that. So what I try to do is I just let them pick. You know, I'll kind of just try to fill. But at the same time, you know, recognizing that it's not like I'm totally a flex player or something like that. So yeah, I'll typically let some of the more, you know, the fraggers play the duelist and just let them fill or let them pick first, and then I'll try to fill the best that I can. So what we usually end up is pretty standard comp. Nothing crazy, like no vipers, nothing like that.
I know exactly what you're waiting for, Rich, and I'm gonna quickly jump on to the next question.
It's true. We just so we give some clarity. We've always had this inside joke every pre-show about Sage and how she has basically been non-existent, and it's Moxi's main. But she does have the new main potentially Sky. So you know, we were wondering if there was a follow-up to your Viper comment about Sage, though we're not going to see it this comment. But
I think Sage is. I don't know. I still like Sage. I think she still gets picked a lot, especially on Split. And I still see that, and our team still does that too. I mean, yeah, the wall change was like pretty big, but I personally think it's still really useful because I mean, if the other team is like spamming your wall right away, you can take advantage of that too, or you can punish that in certain situations. So I don't know. I feel like people might be overreacting to how hard she got nerfed, but I don't know. The pros know more than I do, so I think it's evidence there as well.
I'm not putting my hopes into seeing a Sage this week, Rich. But we tend to see some teams coming in with some pretty big rosters to have a pretty good choice and depth of agent pick rate. How many people are on your team, and do you find yourself slotting people in for different maps so that they can play those different agents?
Oh wow, that's a good idea. No, we're not really doing that. We have like 7 right now, I think. Maybe like 5 mains and 2 or 3 subs, or 2 subs and a floater or something like that. But no, we're definitely not thinking that deeply. Maybe we should be. We're just kind of like rolling with our standard team, and then we just kind of, you know, we're kind of like we're like half competitive, but we're also like we want to play to have fun. But at the same time, like as the season progresses, we definitely feel like we want to be more competitive. So we'll have to think about that and maybe take that idea.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, honestly, you're still in that qualification phase. You're working your way towards entering into the playoffs. You're in that sweet spot. So it's still important to have fun, but you're also still doing fairly well. I mean, across the board anyways, which is a really good thing. And
Thanks.
you know, before we conclude for the interview, we got to ask, is there any individual that you'd give us a suggestion to look for, to highlight, or one person to keep an eye out that would be like a real game changer?
On our team for tomorrow's match?
Yes.
I mean, they're all. I think they're all great, but Revenge is pretty interesting because he's like he can pull out some interesting plays and, you know, be in places you might not expect him to be.
Okay.
Also, Brainless and they're all good. I don't want to play favorites. Just I don't know. Just don't put the cam on me. I'm probably going to be really boring.
Oh, you know what? I guarantee you there's going to be a moment of highlight and we are going to catch the glimpse of greatness. So I doubt that. But honestly, it has been a absolute pleasure to get time to spend with you today and to, pick your brain on
Thanks.
what your team is involved in and what you're looking to do, and, just about you and your history with the company and how you organized and again stepped up to be the captain, which is a great thing for these individuals. I know they're probably just as happy to have somebody kind of lead them in this so that they can be a part of it as a whole, since we're, gracious to have so many teams not only from Amazon but just participated in Valorant, since this is the first tournament we've had in the season with Valorant since its release. So it's exciting to see all of you join, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here, my friend.
Thanks. The feeling's mutual.
Awesome. All right, well, we will be able to get into our second interview shortly, my friends, as we go to a brief break. We'll be back in just a moment. welcome back, friends. If you did see that weird clip of a monitor, you just ignore it. But we are here with our amazing second interviewer, which is going to be the captain from Microsoft, Incision. It is so great to have you here. Thank you so very much. We already had a time to talk with the other captain that you will be facing off this weekend. How are you feeling right now?
Awesome. No, first, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm super excited. Honestly, to have the opportunity to kind of get my shoes into the competitive feeling again and mindset, and just super excited kind of going into the weekend. And I know Amazon's gonna be really tough, so I don't know much you want to talk about the match now, but yeah, I'm super excited. We've been preparing kind of a lot of preparation has been going on over the past few weeks with people kind of swapping roles and things like that. So I'm really excited, and again, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the first thing we got to ask is, how is it that you found yourself becoming the captain, and what made you want to take that role?
Awesome. Well, some people may or may not know me, but I do stream a lot of other games. I'm very, very involved in the high-res community with Paladins and Real Company and a lot of their games. And so for me, I've been around just gaming my entire life. So competitive games, and I can go into a whole story with that. But just having the opportunity to kind of get my shoes in kind of a more competitive, especially now with COVID and not having all the different leagues and all different sports and all different things that you can do, and kind of being like, I just need to get that competitive urge under control. And gaming has been something that I love. Everyone says it's just a game, right? And it is just a game, but when you take it to that other level and you have a like-minded people around you, and you're kind of just building chemistry and building a team, those things really drive me. And when I found out that Valorant was being picked up by the CEA, which I actually didn't know too much about the CEA till last year, I approached some of the people that were helping out, and they're leading the Microsoft Esports initiative. And I was like, I really want to drive Valorant. I really want to see how we can get some teams going. And at first, I'll be honest, I thought we were going to get like 5 people, 10 people coming out. We ended up having like over 30, 35 people show up.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Yeah, and we ended up, first we thought we were only going to have 1 team, ended up having 2 right now. And I think with the way things are going, we'll probably look at even picking up a 3rd team into next year. But yeah, so I'm super excited.
So then when it comes to your team, do they also have the same level of experience, the same level of history in gaming, or is Valorant their first shooter?
So the interesting thing is one of our teams, the Microsoft Office team, actually has been competing in the CEA and CSGO for quite some time, and they are a very solid team. So they approached us and pretty much said, hey, we're looking at pretty much jumping into Valorant, but we may need 1 or 2 players that want to jump in as well. And so I started kind of working with them, and then seeing how we can also build another separate team. And it's funny that you say that, because one team is actually comprised of mainly CS players, while the team that we're on, Windows 10, is actually comprised of players from so many different backgrounds, so many different games, Call of Duty, PUBG, some CS. But it's just been interesting to see just kind of how Valorant has brought in a pool of players from all different games. And they the tryouts weren't easy. The players that we have on both teams are really solid players, and I'm just really excited for kind of the growth. And I think as we continue to build chemistry, I think our results will get a little bit.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I know that you have so many different teams, and, having that type of background of competitiveness yourself, what is it that you've kind of brought to your team now, specifically as a captain who does have experience competitively, to help prepare these other individuals to be on that same level going into these matches?
One thing that's helped a lot, I think, it's just been we're all very like-minded and very we understand what it takes to be successful. And there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of failure. You see a lot of failure before you see any success. And I think that's one thing I bring to the team is just that mentality of, hey, like, things may look bad, but let's take what's good. Let's go back to the VOD. Let's see what we did wrong, and see how we can kind of make it better. This season we dropped 2 games so far this season, and both losses was like 14-12 and 10-13. So for us, it was like it was mistakes that we could have cleaned up. And I feel like that's the one thing that I can help bring to the team, is just kind of, let's settle down. Let's kind of kick back. Let's kind of do our homework. And how do we approach the next game better?
And I noticed that a little bit earlier on in the interview, you actually said a lot of things have been changing when it came to playstyle. Do you guys tend to follow the meta and always try and stick with what you see things like the pros run, or do you prefer to sort of play your own unique composition around what you feel most comfortable?
Yeah, that's a good question. We actually do very much watch a lot of the pro scene and kind of compare our VODs to how they play and what we can take and what else we can put a spin on, based on who we're playing and the maps we're playing on. But we try to stay within the meta for the most part. We do kind of switch things up here and there. I'll put it out there. We've tested running Viper on split in actual scrims and competitive matches, and it's worked out for us in certain situations and certain team comps. But it's obviously dependent on kind of how we're feeling and who we're going up against. But yeah, we tend to try to stay within the meta, and we have pretty strong agent pool within our team, so everyone can kind of flex for the most part.
Okay. Well, with the flexibility and large agent pool, what's your agent of choice, and what is it that you seem to, try and revolve your compositions around?
For me, Valorant is a different type of attack shooter that revolves so much around information, right? So I'm a huge Sova player. I'm a big Sova main. I love the cheeky darts and finding those little kind of places where people are like, where did that dart come from? Like, how did I get pinged? How did I get tagged? So I do really love playing kind of that role for my team. But I do slip into the Omen or the occasional Raze or Jet, depending on what's needed.
Okay.
Okay, I've got to ask this. I've always wanted to ask a Sova main this, Rich. How long do you spend in custom games measuring the distance so that you can just turn your cursor ever so slightly up into the air and somehow be able to hit those arrows from 10 meters away?
Yeah, I've spent. Wow, I couldn't even give you the number of hours I spent when the game first came out, trying just to learn the maps and where and as you play, you kind of start learning what angles or people are holding, and as you rank up, you see kind of different play styles, and you start going into custom games and being like, well, I need to make sure this starts landing there, and practice it hundreds and hundreds of times. No, I couldn't even tell you the amount of hours I spent looking at. I mean, now we have the ability to look at videos and kind of see different lineups and things like that, but just kind of learning my own and making sure that they're ready for when we go into the matches. And I'll be honest, I think that a lot of times those arrows, and regardless of whoever's playing, they can win you games and they win you side ticks. So it's huge. I think Sova's huge.
Yeah, no, that's one of those. I personally am like a big Cypher person, so like when it comes to cams and just information, it's really really important. And Sova still fits that role very very well. And we've seen over the course of a few weeks some really really great Sova play, managing to use the arrows to their advantage, and we're looking forward to seeing that come out. I mean, you said yourself you had a couple really close matches over the last few weeks and only fell short just by a small margin. So being able to get further and further through this qualification rounds to enter into those playoffs is a really exciting moment. And with that being said, who on your team would you say is kind of like the highlight that we should keep an eye out for? If there was one that you could say, like, this person is literally going to just take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. We have 7 on our roster, and we tend to kind of actually play on Saturday with who's been playing best during the week. And that's actually the nice thing about our team is someone will step down and be like, I'm not performing this week. Like, this person's playing a lot better in scrims, so let's have them play. But for the most part, I will say I would keep an eye out on if Gandhi or Human are playing this weekend. Make sure you keep an eye out on them. They are some insane fraggers.
Okay, insane frags. Making a note right now, so we'll keep
And
some eyes
which
on
agents do Gandhi
they are
like to do?
There are 2 entry fraggers, so you'll see them a lot on Phoenix, Reyna, Jet.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that'll be exciting. So, to build a little bit further onto that, I know we talked a little bit about the viewpoint of Sky and Icebox, and we'll bring the same question to you, because I know our previous interviewer was more a little more casual in competitive play, but yourself being more competitive minded, it seems, in just what you've done in your past as a gamer. What are your viewpoints of Sky and Icebox?
I'll start with the agent. I feel like is very hard right now to say until we get our hands on the agent and actually get it in play to see how she's gonna kind of play out with everything else. With the map, I've actually had time to play and had some scrims on it. I personally, we're still figuring that map out. It's very very. I think it's a very tough map to do to retake on any other sites. I think it's going to be a very heavily. You need a lot of info on that map. So I don't think you'll see Cypher, but you'll probably see a lot of Sova on that map for sure. But I just think it's very tight map. There's just a lot of places to hide and a lot of places you got to clear. And I think just if you're able to execute and find a way on offense to plant the bomb, you're going to make it really hard for any team to kind of retake. But again, it's kind of been hard to say without having it in the comp games or in that many scrims yet.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, outside of that, I mean, I know Moxie's been really, really excited about Icebox. There's been a lot of little interesting hints dropped in there for future events and what's coming up, so I know she's looking forward to it as well, and we're curious to see if it'll debut itself for CEA as we get into that over the next few weeks. But I mean, ultimately, we're really, really looking forward to being able to have you play this weekend and have you as the featured match. We were really excited. I know we were kind of going back and forth the last couple of weeks to get you guys shown on stream, and it's a really great opportunity to have both of you get a chance to debut for the first time going into this, and you'll be able to also use that as a nice VOD review to your own credit to help learn from, which will be exciting, I think. And I mean, ultimately, we appreciate your time greatly and are very, very excited, and I'm glad that we both have Moxie and Paul being able to cast it this coming tomorrow.
Awesome. No, I really want to shout out to CEA, shout out to all the casters, everyone that's been putting this on, shout out to everyone at Microsoft that's been kind of driving the esports initiative. It's only getting bigger, and I see a lot more eyes on it, and honestly, this has been a huge opportunity, and I hear this from the players all the time, like having the opportunity to kind of get off work and kind of all collaborate and compete. It's been something that I think a lot of us have been missing. So this has been a huge opportunity across all teams as well, I would imagine. But thank you guys again. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. And again, it's things like that that really make this all worth it, even for us. I mean, just to have all of you feel that way and that positively about it. And again, to change what we even say about CEA is you're going from a physical sport to a virtual world, and it's a great way to start involving that, especially for someone like yourself who says you've been a gamer for so long. I mean, gosh, I'm quite old in my age that I've been playing games for some time. I mean, even like old school like Gauntlet Dark Legacy or like regular Nintendo Duck Hunter kind of stuff, but we won't go further in how old I am. But we do greatly appreciate your time, my friend. Like I said, it is an absolute pleasure. We're looking forward to seeing you put on a show tomorrow and who will be able to reign victorious, and we wish you a great rest of your day, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good one.
Absolutely. You too. And for those that are still tuning in, it has been a pleasure doing this pre-show once again. I know, like I said, we missed last week's, but we were excited to have another one going into this week just before week 6, as we said. Moxie, I know I won't be able to get to cast with you this weekend with some other obligations, but it is still going to be nonetheless exciting because you are with Pulsable, who is a stellar caster. And I hope you're looking forward to seeing these two pretty substantially well-positioned teams going head-to-head.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been told that I'm going to have a lot of entry fraggers to keep an eye out on. And, you know, as soon as they said that, my mind immediately went back to last week's match where we saw that Phoenix, where we saw that Reina have such a strong interaction in that competition. I think we might be in for more of that same aggressive style. And this time, both teams are going to be coming in full numbers, no subs, going to be in full starting positions. I think we're going to have a real close match tomorrow, and close matches on Valorant are always the absolute best to watch.
Indeed they are. And for those of you that want to tune in, you can definitely be there tomorrow at 11 a.m. PST for Pacific time, so you can see these two battle it out. And if you'd also like to maybe feel just like these captains do, to have their, coworkers and have a team for your company or organization, find out all the information below at cea.gg. There's also the Discord and also the Twitter that you can find it at as well. Tons of information, 7 different platforms for games that you can be involved with. Valorant is the one that we focus on, but there is a plethora of others. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. It's been awesome to have you here, and we look to see you tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, we'll see you next week on another pre-show.